Welcome, this is tutorial number 8, and today we're going to cover mostly the self-explore functions. Let me just show you one thing we added here since the last time, as we covered people before in an earlier lesson, and I mentioned this before. As the software is still being developed, we're adding features, here all the time, and there's a feature here that was added later after we taped the people module, and that's pretty cool. So let me just show you this here briefly. You see that in people now you can also assign a key category or dimension to each person, right? So if I click through this here, you can see which I have assigned, right? So this just makes the people module a bit more valuable. And as I'm doing this, I can also click on this button here, show category color, and you see, of course, we have only 4 people in here right now, so they pretty much show you which category people belong to, right? So see here Jane Doe, for example, dentist. Now, so what color is this actually? So one thing that's new here as well, if you push like Apple key and C or Control C on Windows, you'll see that little window here that shows up, or a helper window that shows the dimensions, which you can invoke from anywhere pretty much. And you see, of course, that orange here is physical health, right? So that's just a quick new function we added here to the people module. So now let's go into self-exploration. So when you click on self-explore, this window here shows up. So it's called self-discovery, and this has pretty much 5 major modules, and the first one is called scenes. What that is simply a visualization help, and so let me just give you a quick example. Say the scene here is on the beach, right? So if you imagine you're being on the beach, dimension here, say, let's say this is environment, and then you can say, I'm sitting on the beach under a palm tree, and whatever you want to put in here. And the idea here is really, as you're thinking about things that you do like in this case, so that would be a positive scene here, you pretty much describe the scene and verbalize the scene. And then the key is really to think about what you like about this scene, right? And I won't enter anything here because I think that's really highly personal. You really want to think about what you put in there, right? As you save this, you see on the beach and there's a green flag here, means it's a positive scene. You could also say, describe a scene that you don't like, so being on a conference call, for example, and conference call. This will be more negative scene, and you can say here, sitting on one conference call after the other being bored. Now, as you describe this or think about this scene, right, you could describe now, how you really feel, let's say you have an office job, you sit on all these conference calls, and document, in this case, why you don't like the scene. Let me save this here, you see this is a red. And then the real value here is, as you're thinking about this, maybe you can even think about how you can do this better, right? And, when we covered the meeting module, there's one important function in there where you pretty much before every call plan your goals, right? So that could be one thing that would actually help you, making this scene more tolerable, right? So again, this is the first thing here, scenes, is really to reflect on yourself, and I found myself, documenting quite a bunch of things in here, and some of them, as I document how I like those, right, I can really see how I like those. There's other things where I thought I like things more than I actually do, right? So it's kind of really more going into yourself. Let me just say here, being on a conference call has no dimension, right? That would obviously be work. So as I'm saving this here, of course it is assigned to the work dimension now. Second thing called guiding principles. And this is a very simple thing. So here pretty much you should write down what your guiding principles would be. Typical ones come to mind, say be yourself. Right? Always want to be yourself, right? Say let it go. Right? And don't procrastinate. And whatever you want to add on here. And the idea here is, as you're pursuing goals, you're documenting your moods, your feelings, and everything else, to come back here every once in a while and really think about, is what I'm doing in line with my guiding principles? And I do really encourage you, as you're writing down the principles here, think about this for quite a while, and maybe come up with 10 or so that really, can be your guides, right? Values is a little bit more elaborate. So what this is pretty much supposed to do is, first of all, to think about what your key values are. When you see here's a list of about 30 or so in there, and these are typical, things that could be considered values, right? And so what you have to do is you have to pick the 3 that are most important for you. So let me show you a quick way in which you can do this. So there's a bunch of in here too, right? So maybe you say, okay, challenge, commitment, let's say a couple here you go through, that are really important to you, and then you may say, okay, I actually come up with more than 3. You may wonder about why these check marks are here. It's simply as you sort this list, you see the ones with the check marks go to the top, right? So it helps you pretty much narrow it down. So now of those 3, let's pick the 3 most important ones. Let's say it's physical health, creativity, and challenge, right? So these are the ones I want. So I move this over here, move this over here, and I move this over here. So you see I have picked these 3 key values, and then what you do every once in a while, you assess the values against the 9 dimensions. And you can assign here values from 1, which is the lowest, to 9, which is the highest. So physical health is the same, so it's straightforward. Now think about creativity in physical health. What could that mean, right? Am I being creative with my exercise, with my eating, and so forth, right? So how do really the values correspond to the dimensions, right? So you keep assessing this here, and you have 3 dimensions, and you have 9 dimensions and 3 values. So it's 27 values to add here, which I won't do here for sake of time. As you record this, you see a total score per value, and the top score you can score, of course, is 9 times 9, so that would be 81 in each column, right? So if you assess each of the 9 dimensions with a value of 9, you get 81, right? So, and like I said, every once in a while you want to come back here and really see, how am I living my key values in all these dimensions. Insights is also fairly straightforward. So what that does pretty much is here you can go and document insights about yourself, right? So there could be a whole bunch of things, right? Let's say one insight here in the financial dimensions, like I always keep losing investments too long and sell winners too early. That's a mistake most of us do make, right? So let's say what's the value of this? Let's say it's 8 on a scale of 10. It's in the financial dimension, as I'm doing this here, right? And now you can say, what source is this? You can say, okay, the source of this is my experience, and then you can say, okay, I want to save this, so it shows up here, right? Let's do another one. I say, what's another insight? I don't let people finish when they talk. So this may be more in work life. Dimension is work life. Now if you say the source for this would be a person, you see this lights up and say, I learned this from Jane Doe. Boom, I save this, so you can see here, of course Jane Doe is highlighted here. If you go to the previous one, it's not. So if a person is highlighted, it will pretty much show up here as well, right? So that's fairly straightforward as well. Let's go to traits, and again this is similar. You have a bunch of traits in here, right? And here you can pretty much do the same thing with the checklists, right? You can sort by this, bring the checked ones to the top, and you say, okay, anxious, right? So let's say if I observe one trait in myself being anxious, so let's say, where is this at work, right? And say, I'm afraid of losing my job, whatever it may be, right? And you describe it here, and you can just document pretty much these traits, right? So again, we looked before at guiding principles, which are very high level. We looked at values, which are real true value statements. Insights is what you learn, and traits is more, you see a longer list of traits, so you can really think about, what traits am I exhibiting. So it's really good to reflect as well, right? And then the last section, number 6, is, I wouldn't call it a gimmick, but it's pretty experimental, right? So this is pretty much Maslow's pyramid, right, where top is self-actualizations, and again, if you click on info here, will pop up a web browser. You can read up on Wikipedia or wherever you find a good explanation about, you know, Maslow's pyramid, learn about that. So here you can pretty much click, you know, where you are on Maslow's pyramid, right? So say esteem, it shows up here, right? You can make a comment here as well. So, and of course, when you do read about the description, you know, I think you can go up and down here. A lot of us go up and down pretty much constantly, right? But it's pretty much just another way to reflect. What we do plan with the software, you know, this is more like a psychological model, or you know, a reference model that you can use, you know, to compare some behaviors. So as we're going along and we're getting your feedback, right, we'll probably include more modules like this in the software, you know, that can really help reflect, right? But again, to summarize, the key here of the self-discovery model is, you know, to visualize scenes, establish your guiding principles, you know, and then in these areas where there's insight and traits, you know, really have one place we can store these things. So that pretty much concludes our self-discovery model.